everyone, and welcome to Chef's Club, a club where we get together to talk about food, nutrition, and cooking. My name is Esmeralda, and I'm a dietitian here at the Houston Food Bank. A little bit about me is that I've been working here for about a year. I enjoy teaching nutrition and talking about food and cooking, and so does anyone know what a dietitian is or what they do? Awesome. So if you said that a dietitian is someone who uses food and nutrition to help others be healthy, then you're correct. Now, has anyone heard of the Houston Food Bank? Raise your hand if you can tell me what the Houston Food Bank does. So the Houston Food Bank gives food to people in need. So let's jump into today's nutrition lesson. Today we're going to be talking about how we can use food to keep our bodies healthy and strong. But first I'd like to ask you something. What do you think healthy means? So healthy can mean a lot of different things. It can mean that you have energy, that you feel good, that you're growing, that you're able to focus in school and even play sports. Raise your hand if you want to be healthy. MyPlate is a tool that can help us remember to eat foods that make us healthy. You may have seen it before in your PE class, so feel free to answer questions you know. MyPlate groups food into 5 different food groups: fruits, vegetables, grains, protein, and dairy. So the first food group we're going to talk about is fruits. Take a moment and think about your favorite fruit. And can I have some volunteers to let me know your favorite fruit? Awesome. So now think about some of your favorite vegetables. Raise your hand and let us know what your favorite veggies are. It's really important to eat fruits and veggies, and that's why they are here on MyPlate. They provide a lot of those little nutrients called vitamins and minerals, which help us all over from head to toe. So for example, orange fruits and vegetables have vitamin A, and vitamin A helps us to see. Oranges, tomatoes, and strawberries have vitamin C, which helps our skin to heal when we have a wound, and also keeps us from getting sick as often. They also have something that helps to keep us full so we can stay full longer, and they just taste delicious. Can anyone tell me where fruits and veggies come from? So before they get to your grocery store, they're actually grown in a farm or a garden. So fruits and vegetables come from plants, and a plant has 6 different parts. So first, in the dirt, we have the roots. Then we have the stem. From the stem comes the leaves. Then we could have a flower. And on the flower grows a fruit. And then we have the seeds, which is where the plant grows from. So can anyone give me an example of a vegetable that is also a root? Yes, so potatoes and carrots are actually roots of a plant. What about stems? What vegetable is a stem? Celery. So celery is actually the stem of a plant. Now, what vegetable is actually leaves? So we have lettuce and spinach. Those are the leaves of a plant. Now, what about the flower? This one may be tricky, so I'll give you a little hint. This veggie is a flower. Yes, broccoli. Broccoli and cauliflower are actually the flower of the plant that we can eat. Now, we all know fruits are the fruit of a plant, and then the seeds we'll talk about in other food groups later on. It's important to know that you can eat fruits and vegetables different ways. So you can eat them fresh, or you can have them frozen in a smoothie. You can also cook them in a bunch of different ways, like maybe in the oven, or maybe with some water in a pot, and just try different things. I know veggies can be different, they can taste different, but just keep trying different ways until you find some that you like. The next food group we're going to talk about is grains. So can anyone give me an example of a grain? This one may be tricky, so I have a little hint here. So grains are things like this slice of bread that I have here, but it's anything that comes from rice, wheat, like this bread, also dried and ground corn like tortillas, oats and oatmeal, and quinoa, and there are many others that you can try. So grains not only taste delicious, but they also provide us a lot of energy, especially for our brain to focus while we're doing homework or in school. And it's really important for us to feel full. So there are actually two types of grains. There are whole grains and refined grains. Whole grains is where you're eating the entire grain or the entire kernel. Now these foods usually have a darker color, so if it's a slice of bread, it'll usually be darker. It's also whole wheat pasta. Quinoa is a whole grain, popcorn is a whole grain, and brown rice is a whole grain. Now there are refined grains. So this just means that some parts of the kernel or the grain are removed. And this is done to make it last longer in your pantry. And it also changes the texture to make it a little bit finer and smoother. So some examples of refined grains are white rice, white bread, white flour, things like that. So I encourage you to try more whole grains because these do have a little bit of those vitamins and minerals that we were talking about that help us to have energy and also helps us to stay fuller longer. Next, we'll talk about proteins. So there are two kinds of proteins. There's animal protein and there's plant protein. So can anyone give me an example of an animal protein? Yeah, so animal proteins includes things like eggs, like chicken, beef, pork, seafood, and they all taste really yummy. And we also have plant proteins. So these are things like beans, nuts like peanuts, walnuts, peanut butter, nut butters, and also some soy products like tofu. So proteins are really important because they help our muscles, they help our nails, skin, our hair to stay nice and strong and healthy. And it's really important because we have muscles everywhere that help us to move, they help us to walk, they help us to run, and we also have a really important muscle that helps to pump blood throughout our body. Does anyone know what that is? Yes, it's our heart. Our heart works hard all day long to pump blood throughout our entire body so that we can move and be active. That's why protein is so important. Now, I recommend trying to include some protein in every meal of the day. So if you have breakfast, you can try to have an egg like this. And during lunch, maybe you have some pepperoni on your pizza or you have some chicken. And then at dinner when you go home, maybe you have some beef or some more chicken or fish. Also try to include more plant proteins because these have different nutrients that we need in our body. Now we all know that our muscles help us to move, but there's something else in our body that helps us to stand up straight and helps us to move as well. Does anyone know what those are? Those are our bones. Our bones, we have bones all over our body that help us to grow, help us to stand up nice and tall, and help us to move. So our bones are really important and they're really cool because they're made up of these little minerals like calcium. And calcium is in our last and final group, the dairy group. So dairy is anything that comes from milk. So can anyone tell me what foods belong in the dairy group? Yeah, so in our dairy group, we have milk. This can be chocolate milk or regular milk. You can also have yogurt or cheese. These foods have a lot of calcium, which helps to keep our bones strong. If you can't have milk or cheese because it makes your stomach hurt or you're lactose intolerant, then you can try drinking soy milk and soy yogurt because this also has that calcium that you need to have strong bones. Give me a thumbs up if you're understanding my plate this far. Awesome, awesome. So now we just need to talk about foods that don't really look like my plate. For example, tacos. Tacos don't look perfectly like my plate, but they still have multiple food groups. For example, a taco has a tortilla, which belongs to the grain group, and it also has some chicken or beef or pork that belongs to the protein group. It can have some lettuce and tomatoes, which belongs to the vegetable group, and maybe it has cheese that belongs to the dairy group. So that's a total of 4 groups. So that's awesome because in our meals, we want to try to have at least 3 food groups. So now that you're MyPlate experts, let's move on to the activity. You'll need something to write with, coloring supplies, and this blank MyPlate handout. Once you've gathered your materials, you can go ahead and draw your favorite meal. Now remember, a meal usually includes 3 or more food groups, and just try to do your best to make it look as yummy as possible. And that's it for Chef's Club. Thank you for attending our first meeting. I hope to see you next month, and we'll talk about a new and exciting topic. Thanks. Bye.